Yes. One of the questions I would ask too is along with all of those setups that you have going on, have the kids gotten a lot of, I wouldn't say instruction, but have they gotten a lot of time to really think about who they are as a learner, and also the piece of how they work together in the classroom with the other kids?
And I think that's one thing too, that we call it like a sprinkle. So when we are doing a lesson, or if we are doing a story, excuse me, we're actually sprinkling the goals in, and they can be from all over the gamut. It doesn't have to be just a reading goal or a math goal or one specific goal. But I do feel like if we're sprinkling them all the way through, they can relate back to, oh, I remember when, or hey, it's just like this story that we shared. And that, I think that's something that we do constantly. Perfect example too of like the read aloud that we just did, actually did a chapter story called My Father's Dragon. And along with that, there are so many pieces of targets that reading targets that we can get. But also the kids then, for the community piece, created a rainforest or a jungle in our classroom. So they work like this. It's not just we do all community and no reading or math or writing. They have to work together. The community piece happens all day long. Don't get me wrong, but when we might notice something, or we might do something purposefully, but it's not just this is our community time and nothing else is happening.
Yep, Mike's part.
Things that two of the strategies I think that would help your teachers is for them to sit down at the beginning of the year and say, what are the, and if we're talking reading, what are the reading targets that we know they need right away? Like, what are some of the things that are almost non-negotiables for these kids to have right away? And once you get that clarified and solidified, when you're doing read alouds, or when you're working in small groups, when you're doing a whole group reading lesson, you focus on that. And like Wanda said, it's more of like a sprinkle than it is, this is the target we're going to work on right now, and this is the target we're going to be proficient at by October 31st. It's not that, but it's more of, these are the things that are really important for the kids to know up front. And these are the things we're going to start sprinkling now. So when they start moving on more towards creating their own goals, they understand that those are really important things for them as readers to have. So it's more of that empowerment of giving them the knowledge, and then letting them take that knowledge and use it later. So to answer that very first question you had, this is the time right now that we're starting to dig into those, really give those kids ownership of those goals. We're starting to show them how they can take ownership of those goals. Now that we've given them all the background, now it's time for them to start taking some of those pieces and using them.
Excuse me, one of the other things too, I think the community piece, I'm coming back to it because if that's where they're stuck in, those community pieces are also academic pieces too. Not all of them, but like the snowball fight, for example. One of the things we had was a snowball fight. Easily, kindergarten might be something that are missing all of their letters or whatever. I'm not really sure where they're at, but they could have a letter on every single snowball fight. And when they throw it, they pick it up and what letter is it? So I think some of them, or a lot of them actually, can go both ways.
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Sure. So we have the goals that are all laid out and they're on a Google Doc. So the kids have those, the parents have those. Actually, they're not in the kids' hands yet. They're in the parents' hands and they're in our hands. And the reason being is they weren't ready for them. So it doesn't make any sense to give it. But what we do is right away, we show them this document up on our board. And we connect what we do to the goals on that document. And if you click on, I can't remember what slide it is, so forgive me, but there should be that slide in the presentation where you can click on those goals, and it's a continuum. So we talk to the kids about goals, but we also talk to the kids about everybody's in a different place. So some of you are ready to do this. Some of you are ready to do that. Along with that, we talk about, we just introduced the learning pit. I don't know if you're familiar with the learning pit, which is, can you grab the learning pit poster too?
I'm just grabbing some posters.
Wanda's grabbing posters so you can look at them.
Okay.
Along with that, we name it. So we name it, we model it, and then the kids see that. We keep naming, we keep modeling, the kids keep seeing it until they're ready to say, oh, I understand. So if I'm writing an information piece of writing, I've seen these goals before because Mrs. Welch and Mrs. Richardson put them up here how many times. I know where I am now as a learner because we talk heavily about that. Who are you as a learner? And I know I'm ready for this right now. And then that's where we come in as the coach and we say, yeah, it looks like you're doing that. It looks like you're putting spaces in your words some of the time, but not all of the time. Or it looks like you are writing information about your topic, but I wonder if you could get 3 facts about your topic. And then we kind of coach them through that, and that's how we set the goals. So then we'll say, well, what do you think about that as a goal for yourself? Instead of, we might say, I can write 3 facts about my topic and put mostly all spaces, something like that. So then they're creating the goals with us, and they understand what the goal is.
So let me just show you a couple. I don't know if you can see these or not. Is it too?
Are you able to?
Yes, yes.
Like the learning pit.
Okay. So the learning pit is, really, I got this from a conference and gosh, I can't remember if it was John Hattie's work. I cannot remember, but just look up learning pit. You'll find it. But what we talk to kids through is that we always have challenges in our learning. Everybody does, adults, kids, you name it. We all start with a challenge, and that challenge gets hard. And that's when the kids say, I can't, or I don't want to do that, or it just doesn't work out for me. And we kind of fall into this little pit where we don't know if we're going to be able to do it. And then there's always somebody here with you who says, I got this. We've got this together. And that could be your parents, that could be your peers, that could be your teacher. You name that. It's somebody who's always there to help you work at it together. And then you come up out and you did it. And then we talk about the feeling that they have when they do this success, when they have that success, and what does that feel like? What does that look like? And that kind of goes along with the beginning of creating some success criteria for the kids. What does it feel like to them when they accomplish it? So they always remember we're here if you need us and you can do it. And the kids get it because all you have to do is they'll be like, oh, I don't know. And you physically walk them to this poster and you show them where they're at and they understand, oh, I'm in this process where I don't know if I can do it. And then we'll always say, we're here to help you. And then, woo, yay, we did it. And then how you feel about that.
And then when another child helps them, it's even more rewarding,
Yes.
right? Like that's a 2-for-1, right? Because it's also a great feeling when someone does, but also when someone helps them.
Yes.
Here's another way we get started. It's just an umbrella. I don't know if you can see the umbrella, but underneath, this is all math strands, the math strands. So there's like the counting. And yes, it doesn't say geometry. It just says shapes. So it's friendly. We make it with the kids. And then underneath are some of the raindrops, some of the goals that they could be working on. It's amazing how much they use this because they'll actually be going over and saying, you know what? One of my goals is I want to do some counting and I can count by 5s or I can count by 10s, but I can't count by 5s. I'm going to find that on my, I'm going to make that my new goal. Just that visual piece. I know you're reading, but the same idea happens with the reading piece as well. So that's something that another visual. And then for writing.
Oh, and you do that and I'll get the paper. Another question.
This is upside down. But just this question or this statement that every good writing piece has what? And these are the things that they have.
And the kids create that with us.
Yes.
So down to drawing the lines and you know, what does a good piece of writing have? It has an author's name. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Spaces between our words. So they know that these are the things they came up together with us, but we didn't necessarily tell them that's what good writing has. So we can refer back to these things all the time and say, okay, remember when we created this together?
Okay, and then also, we're getting passionate. Can you feel it?
No, get as passionate as you want. I love it.
But one of the things that they do then is when they're off writing and when they're off doing math or when they're off reading, Lisa and I then are either pulling small groups of kids, or we're working one-on-one, or we're looking for a math strand that has a common denominator that everybody's going to pull together. Or what are you working here that's similar to this friend? We name it again. The kids are starting to name it. And then we look for kids to share out. Things like, yesterday, one of our little kiddos was working on fact families. And so we talked about fact families, and she got in front of the whole entire group and she shared some of her fact families. Does every single kindergartner and first grader working on fact families right now? No, maybe about 4. Right? But it was her time. Again, where was she? But it was beautiful when somebody else was working alongside of her to, you know, to share that learning. Again, it's named. I think that's a big thing too, of like what my goal is, where I'm headed, and I have a plan to work on.
Yeah, and one more thing that we want to share with you regarding some things that the kids can do when they're creating goals. Are you guys familiar with Seesaw, or are they anybody
Yes.
using? Okay.
Yes, I do have a question about Seesaw though, and I think
Okay.
I know the answer, but they wanted me to ask it. The paid you all have the paid version, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I've got a question about it because we just had a conversation with multiple principals. For the younger grades, they're really liking the Seesaw. So when do y'all send out a report card, or is that just the daily ongoing progress kit that parents use?
Well, we have two things. We do the daily ongoing progress through Seesaw, and then we have a report that goes home periodically. And it's not necessarily a quarterly or a trimester kind of a thing. We just send home our reading progress, just reading progress to the parents to let them know how they're doing there. And then we'll periodically update. We'll update writing and math, and we'll shoot out an email that says, okay, take a peek at how your child's doing here. And that's that continuum we talked about. So as they move through the continuum, it gets marked on there. And that's our report card.
And they're continuing
Google
Doc.
Now, Seesaw, we can upload it into Seesaw.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The problem is it gets buried for parents. Parents, yeah, you know how that works.
I assume Seesaw is more like the student portfolio of work, and parents can see
Yeah.
the feedback. It's like
Yeah.
we used to have take-home Tuesdays with hard copies, but now that it's one-to-one, we don't have near the paper. And so
Sure.
that's another complaint we've got, is that they're not seeing actual student work. So
So we end up like using our phone. We've got the roving phone every day. They don't necessarily own that, but they do enough uploading of their own stuff that we feel it's okay too if we snap a picture or take a video, or and then it's just an ongoing portfolio.
okay.
One of the other things for reading is, I don't know if you can see this, but we've taken all of our sight words, and the top is whether you can read them and the bottom is whether you can write it. And these get uploaded onto Seesaw.
That right now, by the way.
You are, okay. These are getting uploaded onto Seesaw, but not all of it. Let's just say it's this one, because this little girl is working on this list. You can see the errors that she's making here. We upload this, she copies, and she can copy this. She can do all sorts of things with this, and then she can work with it on Seesaw. If I took these words she didn't know, I could record them onto Seesaw. She can play back that recording and then do a copy edit, and she can actually write the words as a spelling test. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
If she copies and edits, she can do a lot of stuff with her own work. She can show me what she knows that way. They did their letter sounds that way, so we have a letter sound or a letter sheet that she's got them all, but this one's blank. We'll put that on there. She'll copy edit, and then they can say a, J, J. We don't have to sit there one-on-one with the kids and say, okay, what sounds do you know? What letters do you know? Because they can do it now themselves. So that's a piece that I think gives them a little bit more empowerment too, to work.
And that's also takes time. Lisa's like talking the or the first grade, right?
Yes.
Like the kindergarten kids need a little bit more encouragement, or nudging, but it's something that we could do together and train. And so when we do have them 2 years, then they're able to do more of that as well.
Yes.
And also when you talked about the reporting piece, we don't report on certain standards at certain times of the year, like Lisa said, but it's really about where the child is and what they're doing at that time. The reading and the writing are continuums, and the math has all of the goals from kindergarten to first grade. And if they're working on counting, it's just recorded just on counting. If they're working in the shapes and geometry, that's what's recorded on that time. So it's not like every 9 weeks or that kind of thing. It's more of, I could report every 2 weeks if they were moving to different things and then we're ready.
So the idea of you guys having pacing guides, anything like that, you probably don't. Everyone's working at their own pace, correct?
Yeah, we don't have any pacing guides.
And this is kind of a visual, if you can see it, of our continuum just for, I believe this is foundation, this is editing goals for writing. So the kids, this is what we'd flash up to them on the screen. And this is the writing process, so that they understand that there's things that we really have in writing. I keep getting up. I apologize. One more thing I have to show you.
Oh, we just created some of these.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them you might have, but some of them probably not.
So now they're writing
Buy them
paper.
from
Actually,
Yes.
you can have them. It's 0 cents. So this is their writing paper right now. So it has the information goals, it would have the narrative goals, it would have the opinion goals, along with some of the really important editing goals down there. So as we're working with the kids, and they know they can staple extra paper on there, as we're working with them, we can refer to this with them. Okay, you said your goal was this. Let's see if that's how you're doing here, and they really own it then. They really
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah. So
And the same idea with, the math and the reading. This is the math. We have flowers. Next year, I'm going to change it to the umbrella because it just worked. They got it this time and it was not so much, but again, they're all different flowers of the different. And then for reading, can I just show also the pages of, so.
oh, for each level.
Yeah. So like this is just, so we have, this is kind of crazy, but we have like a writing folder with all their writing things that they put in, like their letter charts and all of that, plus all of their writing. We have a math one with all of math goals that they could work on. Do they have to work in that? No, but all of the goals are in there. So if they wanted to hit it paper pencil wise, they could. It also works as a great assessment piece, to be honest. And then with reading, we have a reading binder that Lisa and I put together. Instead of trying to look for, and each child has a binder, instead of trying to look for like the running records, their words, I mean, everything's in one place. Rhyming, yes. So this is like every level we have like icons or what a benchmark of level B reader looks like. This is also something that's with parents, with children. We do this together. We fill this in together with the kids. I think
these are all linked to their learning plan. So when they're in a specific level, parents just have to click it open and say, when I'm reading with my child at home, these are the things
that I'm
and
working with.
we'll put either a yes with a comment, or so they know these are, if one's blank, that's what we're still working on within that level. And we might have some blanks and move on to a new level, if that makes sense, because you can't say, oh, you're stuck at a B just because you can't, so
you haven't built enough reading stamina. Just kidding. But this is one of the reports when we were talking about a reading report. This is exactly what it would look like to some kids who are in reading text right now. Not everybody is yet in kindergarten. Some are still working on letters and sounds and rhyming and phonemic awareness. But that would be another whole section then that is reported out and shared with families, because the more they know, the more they can help. and it's a win-win for everybody. So
Absolutely.
the kids then have a purpose when they're going off reading, that they are working with, you know, pointing one-to-one or whatever. That's,
What about we want to talk about what about like just kindergarten? Like most of your kindergarten kids, what are they? Where are they at this point in time? Like in reading content, what's the majority of kids working on? Just so we
okay.
get it.
Yes, so we have kids, I have 4 kids that are working just on letter identification. And I work with that with sounds as well. So I do both together. And that's one crew of our kids. Another group of our kids are working on sounds of vowels, probably the hardest group there is. Another group is working on diagraphs. Another crew is working on how books work, like left to right, tap under the word, the picture, the first letter, that whole piece. I have a group that isn't even in letters yet, that are working just on rhyming and segmenting. And I say cat, put it together for me. I have kids that are working on, I mean, I have every gamut. I have the sound, can you make the sound on a dry erase board? Just because they can produce it in isolation, when you get it to writing and reading books, they have no idea what sound that is. I also have kids that are reading level D readers that are above and beyond. Now, I'm talking 3 kids out of 22 kids. But that is not the typical. Many of our kids right now, though, are in level A or B readers, pre-readers. The kids that aren't reading yet still have that opportunity to take books home. The more that they're read to, the more they're worked on for those sight words and all of that. But everywhere, it's all over the gamut. We have parents that come in and just work with the kindergarten kids because they can be, a rhyming game they can do with a parent. They can do a letter match. They can do sounds, all of those kinds of things. We have 4 that we use regularly that are willing to come in. And so I just spend a little bit of time training. And they're my best friend next to Lisa. So they're constantly changing.
And then math, same.
Yes.
Same
idea. I have kids that they only have numbers 0 through 5. So they're working on numbers, 6 through 10. I have kids that are working on fact families. I have kids that are in measuring. I have kids making 3-dimensional shapes. It's really what goal they want to work on. Now, with that said, you have to be kind of careful, because if you don't know your numbers through 10, you certainly can't do fact families, even if your brother is doing it in 1st grade, that kind of thing. But they're pretty intuitive of what they really need to work on.
Our reading usually goes from 9:10 to 10 o'clock. And then 10 o'clock. We stop them usually.
Yeah, and they usually aren't ready to stop. That's the beauty of it too. And they do have a blended, so they could go on technology. Onto Raz Kids or Head Sprout, where they can, do those same exact things, but that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then we do the same thing for math. Oh, then we have a snack break and a recess break, and then we have another story.
Yeah.
And our math and writing, I teach the math and Lisa teaches writing at the same time, but with half of our kids. And they are not kindergarten and 1st grade separated. They're separated, just mixed up. So we have 12 kindergarten and 12 1st grade on each side. And how long is that from?
That will usually be from 10:10, if it's a good day and we're having lollygagged, to like 11:15. Yeah. And then we do share outs, which ends our morning, because kind of gives them an idea of what the other kids have done. And then we go into another math and writing in the afternoon.
After lunch. And that share out piece, we do take the time. Sometimes it's hard to get in, because the kids, even if it's an hour and 5 minutes or however long, an hour for math and writing, they are not done. It's kind of crazy. But when we do have up stopping and coming together, Lisa and I then are looking for those share out kids that can share a piece that might push somebody else. It might say, aha. It might be a celebration for somebody who's never written a letter on a page before. It could be all different things, but somebody's meeting some type of a goal or something worthy to celebrate for.
Yes.
No, we start at 8:20. So when they first come in the morning, they sign up for lunch. They do something called a morning mingle, and they can, just like what teachers like to do when they first come in, they want to talk to each other. They want to show their show and tell things or whatever. They play at the Lego table. We don't, it's not a full play because we don't open the blocks and the paints and all of that kind of stuff in the morning, but it's just a time where they can kind of come in and just get ready for their day.
Yeah.
And then we come together with some kind of a community piece. Yesterday it was a book.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a game, sometimes it's a song, sometimes it's a activity that the kids bring in.
Yeah. But it always
All
has
different things.
always has a goal to it. So so yesterday's book was Kyle Has to Go. It's called Kyle Has to Go. And since we're doing the rainforest, it was about a koala or a sloth who has to come down from the canopy to go to the bathroom. Within that, sloths only go once a week, just so you know, and they have to climb down, and it takes them forever. And he's afraid, this little guy. And we connected it to the learning pit and how this Kyle was afraid to come down, but he had all these friends along the way who helped him out. And once he got to the bottom, he felt so empowered that he was able to get there without his mom. His mom comes down and says, I'll help you back up. But he's like, no, I can do this myself. So it's that lesson of, it doesn't necessarily have to be an academic lesson, but it's that lesson of, you know, if you're afraid to do something, there's going to be people along the way who help you. And then you're going to feel even more excited to try things on your own the next time. So it always has something connected to it, that our community games are about meeting goals.
Right.
Working just
together.
That sprinkle still. I think we sprinkle throughout the entire school year.
So when you say like reading, you know, we read all different times. Like we have chapter books, we have, you know, read alouds, but that happens all go through the day.
Yeah.
Okay. So like your morning time, Dan, whatever the purpose of the skill is for whatever you're reading or you're doing, it's really promoting the skill of kind of the student taking ownership, being able to persevere. So when they do go to their reading and math time and something's hard and challenging, it's trying to give them the skill to do kind of what you're talking about.
Yes. And even, you know, yesterday we had a little girl that was working on place value that was really tough. And so somebody else came over and he was a kindergartner. I had no idea that he was ready to, and he just kept listening with one ear and he kept getting closer and closer and closer. And anyway, the long end of the end was he actually was teaching her how to do it when it was all said and done after I kind of walked away. And so my share out really wasn't about teaching about what place value is, more than how they work together and how that felt as a learner and I think those are the pieces that we're trying to instill in the kids as well. However, was it also talked about place value? Absolutely. But thank you.
I will pay your consulting fee.
Okay. You enjoy your Friday.
Yes, thank you.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.